feature of gods and human beings, to you, the complete nephew of Ornament, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the secure from the Shakya clan. I prostrate and make offerings in your correct images. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the third destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, Lord of the world, supreme guide and invincible faith, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the complete immortal awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the secure from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings in your refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the third destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, Lord of the world, supreme guide and invincible faith, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely immortal awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the secure from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings in your refuge. When O supreme amongst humans, you are born on this earth. You taste earth's seven strides, then say, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies, forms, and unique pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, flame that blazes in the three worlds, river of the best, all to you I prostrate. With the supreme science space rocks flawless smooth, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the three worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the founder having all understanding, the field of merit with faultless rapid last ocean. To you, the one gone to dustness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime reality, the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who liberate and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three every devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, and all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the 12 faults and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness and death. To page 15 for the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling in Master Lotus mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration of the Category Self-Phenomena called profound attention. Also at that time, the bodhisattva Master Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of contemplation of wisdom, and beheld those 5 aggregates also as the key of inherent nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the venerable Shariputra set this to the bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and then subtly convinced Shrey, who wishes to practice scientifically the profound perfection of wisdom. He said that when a bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the venerable Shariputra, Shariputra, any similarly intellectual divinity who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon enlightened wisdom, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as the key of inherent nature. All is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition, or factors in consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness. Without characteristic, unproduced, unseen, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, emptiness, represent form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition or factors in consciousness, no identity, no There is no I element and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no reason, no extension of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extension of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and harm. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom. The mind without obscuration and without fear, and in completely past beyond error, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas have dwelt in the three times, also manifestly completely awakened to unsurpassable complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bhagi Soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice a profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoiced. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharadvaputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. To page 25 for the short mandala. Sashi Puse Chushe Metotra Vira Linji Nite Kempati Sange Shindu Nite Uwadi Droko Nanda Jingla Barasho Jetsa Lama Dambaje Namje Chuge Kala Chinze Tinjine Chetara Samye Tuje Zemala Zamje Juji Chava Abdu So Guru Rana Mandala Kandiyatayami Sanye Jadan Soji Chanana Chanchu Pada Dani Jasu Tage Chujin Jive Sonam Ji Dora Vinci Sanje Do Sanje Jadan Soji Chanana Chanchu Pada Dani Jasu Tage Chujin Jive Sonam Ji Dora Vinci Sanje Do Sanje Jadan Soji Chanana Pada Dani Jasanshi Tage Chujin Jive Sonam Ji Dora Vinci Sanje Do Kanga Zenye Zave Dawa Nje Pame Chire Dame Shine Zeve Godam De La Chazel Tonye Nye Sane Jebe La Chichi Sense Kanche Dende Gwa Chana Be Ma Dende So De Zoje De Len Dojo Bande Zeve La Mara Machi Tage Nyingara Bende Ne Jone Gode Jimbe Gode Jizonde Guzondu Jingodu Zedo So Aye Dan Zo Di Gulong Komshi Kevin Darwa Gulong Ni Had Tiram Mongboji the Trin Shobe Javi Inanda Tirineshi Tiring Tanda Manzo Tinda Toya is Samarani Jibutanda Main Pache the Simji Tamje Shit. And intended to be Tadu Combato Tishi Duni, Combato Shevu to Shevu Latu 2 years some journey or the dig and Guno in Chanjusing Guno Simpachi.
Again, correcting a correct motivation, which we have done a lot. The motivation of listening to this class is not just for oneself, but to place all living beings in the final state of Buddhahood. In order to do that, one needs to know. In order to know, one needs to listen. So listening with that bodhicitta motivation.
뭐야, 다 먼저 먼저 이제 저자든 이제 투기 총한테 메지들 개와 상부이 가고 공부를 했어.
Now, to hear ornament of clear realization in this life is fortunate. Rejoice in that.
뭐야, 아, 그래서 저 이제 다니 상마비니 저 렘베 오브 잡샤스로
Yes.
페이지 만차 디지타 세보소가스 케민두스로
Those that sat and did the exam questions did well. I think because of that, there's no need to clarify anything particular around that.
다디나니 개체로 지단다 바제멜란다 남들람세야 돼서 디데스 디콜라 드링 조디네마데스 세보스나로
But what I thought today would be to clarify the important points around the two of the uninterrupted path and liberated path, as they are of importance.
다 당부든 데스레 다 먼저 장시 소라 다 먼저 장시 될랑아란저 녀모 여러와
Yes.
말한저 녀모 다 녀모 디스임단 되어야지 아니 녀모 될라 아니 차라만 거지 용거 여러다
Yes.
녀모라고 녀모 타와 텔레장 신도 타와 시제 녀모 될라 방자 당부 방자 될라 타라 숨치러
Yes.
당부 아니 되네디 봉제게 람딜라양 아니 타라 숨치나 도스 채나다 낭배게 쳐야겠다. 지징 상마 세부차로 그래서.
Now, in terms of that, the basis to be purified are the afflictions. And because they're connected with the mind, there are different levels of those afflicted mental states, gross, subtle, and very subtle. And in a commensurate way, valid paths which acts as antidotes to them. When you understand that, you get a good understanding of Buddha Dharma.
다당부 방자 녀모들라 타락바디 가르샤 그래서는 먼저 하나서 단다 하나서 다 되자 시당 콘동하게 먼저 규대해줘라.
Yep.
뒤에 데이터 녀모 반자락바락바들 해서와.
Now, firstly, looking at the gross level of delusions, afflictions to abandon, we have desires, attachment, hostility, pride, jealousy, and so forth. Gross level.
다 딜레데스 타르나다 되자 시당 콘도 뒤에게 싸워디 된제 마르벌 되네 총어디. 디데스 다 하장 타워 디돌라다 다루비 남샤디 메나 로아데 바자 딜레장 타워디 단지 마리과 레스로.
So even more subtle than that, if we look at the root of those afflictions, we have the ignorance which grasps at true existence. So that is even more subtle, underlying, that needs to be abandoned.
다 딜레 장 타워디 나 카둘라야 아니 먼저 지 방자 낭제 토섬 니낭 타메게 낭신 제 딜레야 아니 다데 낭제 토섬 베나 저다 미시르드 나오갈람바 쳐 말라마 니도 나람바 세저로 디네가게 아니 나 디네가게다 니나랑도 말에 낭제 토섬 타락 시바 하장 타외게야 어디 타라직 시에제 반자 타오직 시에 요래서
Even more subtle than that, in the context of Tantra, one has to get over the subtle view or the dualistic fixation of ordinary appearance, and those that dawn at the time of death in terms of the dissolutions of white appearance, red increase, the black near attainment, and then the empty of all. So in terms of subtlety of consciousness, there's that level as well.
다디네 네 본제기 람 다디 예딩도 본야기 방자디 제로와
Yeah.
본제기 람들라다 바제멜람 스나 달래야데 냠보들라야 냠보스도 고 본제기 탑람들라야 타라숨 아니면 되자시당 콘로 내가 방예들라 신의 직된벨람 직된벨람체 다디네 네 당지 디무디지 마리고 방이 람들라 직된렌데벨람데 파진디벨람 스톡신 요체고라.
Now, but so that's looking at the objects of abandonment, but then the paths that manifest to abandon them, the antidotes. Well, there is like a worldly paths and then transworldly paths. On the worldly level, the calm abiding, which is able to temporarily suspend the gross level of afflictions, and then the more subtle level of transmundane, which gets at the root. No.
다들 내 당기면서 니나 차라 빠니 기람딜라 nga 기람딜라 셰운데 니 기름당 조름 니 시지 셰용으로.
And then in terms of the, purifying the subtle dual view, in the context of Tantra, we talk about generation and completion stage.
다 반자대다 님보디 뻥주 그림 바 가래래 빵당 가래래 시시 다디 티월렘비 이나로.
So then the question comes, in what order or how do the objects of abandonment, how are they sequentially abandoned? So how does that process take place?
응에 딜라 빼니 샤오로 빼니데 당보데 배당보데 졸라켄게 둘러투어 나시 졸라켄스는 탄두냐니서라 다들 뭐마 빼닝 버로 등상 와시미시난 주제 컨테스트가 하고 문다라 상모 와시나 저 직내제데 들어서데 뒤적더라 주당 간데 미가시 둘러야 우투신가요 땡거다 와시미신 잔잔데 제 미시면나 둘러투 투마신견데 자 아데는 뭐마 자가다 빼닝 버로 이제 당고 저다 디 너마 세럴랑서 디 반자반두 셰는데네 디 저다 님 dun다레레 둘러라고 두대거라 당고 작바라고 텔라당 디게데 사로다 둘러 텔라 작바라고 디게데 다우도 당고 아니 되네 냐네 도 나고 찬조도 솔라 이지 답제 다고도 다디네 간산질라 티마디 데고도 둘러 티마디네 티마디라 양자 망고 푸부 망고 따나메시 티마디 데고도 제단 둘러게 티마 가야 돼 쉬워지 배 유릉부 되기도 하대 대깔에 먹자고더라 제단데 반자데 즉 둘러도 작와라고 파다도 나시 아니 반자 당고라고라고데 반테네 등와데 반테네 차와데 반와두스네 반자 아니 라고네마 방고레스라.
Right, so in terms of the mode of abandonment of the afflictions, we can give two examples, the first of which is akin to washing clothes. And this is an old example coming from the times in India where they would wash clothes by hand, sola, with a type of kind of detergent. And these days we have washing machines. So people think it's really easy to wash clothes, but however, in that sense, when we were in Sarah in India, when we were learning about these modes of abandonment, because once a week we had to go out and wash our own clothes by hand. So the first level of dirt to be gotten rid of, the grosser level, were the dust, dirt. And then secondly, when that had been gone, the stains. Well, the stains we had to apply soap to, but then there's a third level, which would have been the stains or like the smells left over, and that required more effort. So you have these three levels of countermeasures to the gross level, the middle, and subtle in sequence.
Tadi dhulu dhudu thangbo telaro dhayala da kale shida gyawamda chunala malu dhudu danshin tel samaya tuyunguda ra. Ani ne chagwa deyze, chagwa tubudu zo yizi tingma chiksi gyabshana, chagwa tubudu thongzhawda.
Yeah.
Tadi ne di chagwa shinda pola, ani shivuji purbu shakitang kale shuk gyaguda ra. O di nanji pangja di laga di dhudu kale di thangbo shuk chunjunsi gyab pang dhudu danshin shan. Di ne maa di ne tindi kale manzu gyagu cheza. Di nanshi 아니 년부 충림내야 제고래서도 빼되는데 야고 쉬우고도 알아.
Yeah. And then, of course, that first level of dirt, getting rid of it, is quite easy because you're just like soaking the clothes in water and the dust goes. But then second level, a little bit more to get rid of the stains, you'd have to use a detergent or soap. But that third level, though, you'd have to put in some elbow grease and really go for it with effort. But this analogy is good, akin to the effort one puts into abandoning in terms of starting off small and going medium and increasing in strength.
지난시 아니 단다 정엔 다와봐.
Yeah.
다와디 아니 년부 충림내 찍어서도 채워 찍내야 시제는 다와디 충 채로 주고도.
Yeah.
다 반제 체림내서도 네 풀몸 차네 아니 마마마마마 세루다 어디난시 다와 마 세바디 반자라샤 다와야 차네 냐강와디
Nyambo.
아니 냠보 톱친다 산제지 공반레도 다와 냐강 차로다 어디난시 베드엔데 딘델레 양자기 요레스로
Second example is like the waxing moon. So we see that with the waxing moon from the first of the moon cycle up to the full moon, the moon is waxing. So in that sense, the strength of antidotes are getting stronger. But on the waning cycle, as it's going from full moon down, then the commensurate strength of the moon is getting weaker, akin to the abandonment of those abandonments, the obscurations, afflictions.
어다 베테나시 아니 반자 라과 단당하면서 추미지 남도도 들어봐 라과다 추미지 남도 뭐 심다 만을 투도에서도 심토에 되질라 아니 되네 딜레전데 되자시다 컨트롤 되네 투용거다 더저 반자 라과 더저 님볼라 심토 툭 된저들라 우중 고난 공잡신에 매버서 두고요라 반베 님보 렐 하버지 그러와
Yes.
우중 공나 심야고네나 추미지 남도디 가샤고라다 세상에 년보디 중림 년부치림 중림 반자치림스 다다 두고다
Yeah. So then in terms of mode of antidote application and commensurate abandonment, in order, if we look at the gross levels of mental states, which we would say are discursive thoughts, they really make the mind hallucinate a lot. Well, then desires, attachment, hostility, all of that. But, the first application of the level of antidote to that is breathing, or the breathing exercises, which actually is quite easy if you apply it to the first level of mental constructs or thoughts which are inappropriate. So that's the first easier.
다데네 아니 셈바 디아다 지금 다 신의 검색으로 하잖아. 다 신의 검에 탑람당 망부께서 망부시에서라. 아니 당연한저 단다 뭐는 저이나다. 우중 장가자데 야보도 되고 대화단 되게 매우시다. 산제를 미르네 디 대화유나 선남다 님도 계전시기요로. 남림나라 산제 유kul로 미고 중요하디 산제를 이제요와 당 드졸 숨으로 말아서다 누저 산제를 이질래 가보더라.
Yes.
아니 우중어딘 우중은 당겨라. 당겨라. 아니 울 당겨 잡샤나 망고직디 편도보다 수수 다저 수수로 와 수수 다다로 제단다 신에 생근내자야 제원데 아니 당기셔 나지래다 님보들라 직된벨람 아니 배나당라서다 되베게 뇨모 감콩메뇨 감성군요
당본대로 와야
감성군 뇨모 dewe nyomo sugu nyomo sumi nyomo 다 dewe nyomo pangwa chewala ne dewe ge jigden shira namje ge lam sije 다 데라 신에 게 디야 직 삼대 당고 데려야 아니 지 이지 tuk세야 되는 시기 여러 되들려야 dewe nyomo 데라 아니 진정 중숨 고르구스 네 라고라고네 마시 방도야 두세니다 데려야 니도 이지 tuk세야 되는 시기 여러
Okay. So then, in terms of the breathing as an antidote, we have been over the accomplishment of calm abiding many times in class. And if one combines one's shamatha with the breath, but also has as one's focal object an image of Buddha and has faith in Buddha, not only is it a method for cultivating single-pointed concentration, shamatha, but also because of one's faith, one accrues merit. But for some in the West, such faith in Buddha is not so easy to do, so therefore the breath is used. And when we talk about the yoga of calm abiding, firstly, it can be related to, as we mentioned before, the two levels of mundane and transmundane, or worldly and transworldly. And the first level of worldly is akin to the three realms, when one is looking at the desire, form, and formless realms. So firstly, with regards to abandoning the gross afflictions of the desire realm, with calm abiding, one is going for the first level of concentration. And with that, there are these like 6 valid states one has to use, and applies those 6 states to what are called the 9, there are like 9 degrees of abandonment of afflictions of the desire realm, going from the great of the great to the small of the small, great, middling, and smallness.
제가 신의 토비온디 녀도 토바 균형으로 녀도세데 직된베 람고 일단 녀보들에 직된 시라 남지 람고 녀보들라 녀도시 요래 민디를 녀도 세고 녀도 신의 토바다 녀도 토바체 아니 삼데 상불심 토바 이게 좀디 균형으로 하다 간다라
신의 토바. So when one gets calm abiding proper, one gets a nyeto, which is like a close or a near attainment. So it's close in terms of getting the first concentration. Samden tangbo.
Samden tangbo ta sim tobra.
Yeah. The mind has accomplished the first dhyani.
Ta dine dige nyerdo de ge ne dewe nyumo ngunjuwe nyembochen dewe ngunjuwa pangba toba dang. Samde ngushi isini di toguyo odi da jigdenbe namge namdre lamse dirida.
Right. So with that level of near attainment, one's mind then has the potency to counteract or countermeasure the gross level of afflictions of the desire realm, and with that simultaneous is the attainment of the first dhyani.
제가 신에게 되외뉴모 방단데 간레를 라비온데네 신에서야데 제단 유직을 미고 짬직 말해 라 가시게 디트 찔미는 안에 배신에 토벌려도
Yes.
심 개외 미고라 미고 좀 개외 미고 개월라 미지 개월제도 미지고
알겠어.
개외 미고라 네 제주도 미 대한 루심 신장이 대외 신데도 네 대내걸라 루심 신장게 이게 대화지 예배 띵라 미고데 네 가와 미고에 있는 계획이 미고네 계획안에 미용거라 계획안에 미스나나 아니 심 계획 미고라 다시 된데도 냠바죠로 마슬라라 라비도 네 된데 루시 신장게 이디지 예배 인상 대화디 된데직 대화지 예데 아니 차단디 계산 주느라고요 말다 이제 내가 계산 매웠어요고 내가 저자시나 되베기 저자시나 공동하게 타도다 진다지나 니당 kö바당 다 두서요 말에 니당 기생한서데 녀몽아시에 바 대값이면은 고주니 니무니 텐좀 데벨 덴바 텐좀 두아 디게디 내가 디내가라 제도고요 말다 요 말 내가 제도고요 말 이거 뭐 심디 열심히 내가 한 대자마세 아니 문주어도 내가 깨매도 봐지 문주어더라다 문주어도 내가 깨매도 봐서베 뉴스토민도 아니 남들람 타바스다 디 방단데 와 리세 다가나래다 봐
Kislanga di yang ge lab di nyamung na.
디 바가자 고조니체 니무니체 아니 데발라 듬바체 아니 텐좀제 지가래
Doubt.
듬바
Okay.
건조하고 다
야.
건조 이게 나라
Ale dripangadi.
Dripangadi.
Tari. Yeah.
지방아디
So now, with regards to shamatha, what we should know, it is, some people think that shamatha or calm abiding is just, being able to focus the mind single-pointedly on an object without wavering from it, which doesn't really give the true definition of calm abiding, because in terms of calm abiding, what has to be the focus is that the mind can focus on an object of virtue at will. And here, the key point is virtue, not just any object. So in terms of single-pointed concentration, what happens is, due to the serviceability or pliancy of body and mind, a special bliss is induced. And due to the induction of that special bliss, one is able to focus one's mind on an object at will. And in that state, because one has the ability to focus on an object of virtue at will, and there's bliss, there's no opportunity for these afflictions to manifest in the mind, such as desires, attachment, hostility, and so forth. So there is that. And, those 5 obscurations that we had in the exam, which were discursive thought and doubt, and then there was dullness, sleep, harmful intent, lethargy, excitement. Yep, thank you. So those cannot. Malice, yes, thank you. So now, in the light of them not being able to manifest, one then has created namdrolam, liberated path with regards. A worldly liberated path with regards to the non-production of such obscurations. Right. So these are the Hindu practitioners are in common with this ability.
제가 좀 전에 당보 낭보 삼마제군라 이 힌두고 똑같이 제도 와봐 신의 톱 3대 당보니 와서 뭐 나가다 남지 제메시 디제 똑같이 제톱 디톱네 혼자다 제메네 타워터버스라고도
야.
좀 전에 타워터면도 단다 단질하 되셔 단지도스로 단지도 요뭐 자올하 되셔 저는데 타워레면도 세제네 공자가 피셔도
Yeah. And one would recall Lord Buddha would have attained all of that with calm abiding, all of, those sequential steps, those 8 that we went through on a mundane level, going right through those 4 absorptions, isn't it? Where you go through like consciousness, limitlessness, right up to nothingness. But Buddha did observe that last absorption, the 8th one, what yet remained, that was not in fact a liberated state, because what yet remained was the root of clinging to true existence, still remained as the root.
제자한테 이 단지 방에라 직된 벨란지 판도마베잔타 딜라니 직된레 데벨람세디 타고고요레스.
So because a worldly or mundane path cannot act as a countermeasure to self-grasping at true existence, then what is necessary is to cultivate a trans-mundane path to antidote grasping at true existence.
제단 디인도 아니 지된래 대회 람 톱제 람들라 아니 먼저 콜링이 와 중화 생이 중그 로지 아니 배낭서 티진래 쉐위나 솔람 전원 통론 고나 밀로람스 람가 책이 열어
야,
아니 솔람지 내가스 다 담에 또 오샤나 디게로 간사 동반이 또 왔다 또 티진래 시샤샤면나 동이 간사 단지 템바즈베 딘지 신유 순중베 아니 동반이 또 동이를 미게 대상부 돈이도 왜다 제바당 제시르와 돈지수지 도고요로 졸람이 내가서 졸람이 내가서 야 졸람리도 돈이를 금중줄로 더와다 졸람 탑도 뒤에다 돈이 돈지수지 도고도 거르디 뒤에 내가다 신내 터사변은 되변유모 문제가 여면 당기되는데 졸람지 내가네 아니 되와 유모 뉴디 나데다 라미게와 치도고요다 졸람지 내가서 먼저 디방아이바
야.
디방아디 아니 졸람지 내가 내 페이지다 빵 가지고 가나간장 빵 두고 열다
Yes.
다디네니 돈이 무슨도 왜 람도 돈람 차도 열어 돈람당 돈람 람니 차서 디그 방제 셰는데 방제들라 단지들라네 군다당 현지에서 야 타라니치 락바디 군다치 참모디 현지에서 니치 단지들로 단지 락바디 카레라는 두데 온게 그러면서 봐 된다 두데 온게 다 두어 요레스 베나 힌두들 뭐니 디요레스기도 이제 풍불에 된신베 다 요레스 이 이슈드즈이나 솔사지 요레스기도 하다 두자 뭐 두데스고도 메시 이슈기 최케만의 이미지가 솔켈랭면도 힌두 최케만의 이미지가 풍불에 된신베 다 켈랭면도 제가 되죠 두데 온게 세베 단지 손자 락바 임브레 락바 제단디 군다스 두데 온게 김제 두데 온게 지메짐바들라 군다스고로 대봉니 람들라 안에 통람지 내가서 군다데 디빵단데 라르미게베 최진신은 당기데 내갑 잠시에도 와시네게 지딘베 람데 내가 매우서들면서 람데파 냠드도 야 뉴모양 게게용 거다 알아서 깨와 망볼라 시내 탑제 탑 야마냐 야야 탑제 장래대와 깨와 장래대와 먼저로 탑이어서 봐 이나데 가서나 탑 야냠 야제 야탑 야컴 두스데레스 알아서 장가자 돼요 뭐 다 직딘래 대회 통남이 내가서 라르미게베 최진 직딘래 대회 람지 라르미게베 최진 자와 사면대 제가 방주 뒤로 최단 뒤다 디메다 차서
So now coming to this level of transmundane abandonment of grasping at true existence in the context of cyclic existence, we would call this the uncontrived thought to definitely emerge when we get to that look at abandoning the root of samsara. So we know in the context of the great vehicle then, we're going to have to go sequentially through 5 paths: accumulation, training, path of seeing, meditation, and no more learning. And what we're building up to do is to directly antidote the incorrect clinging or object of observation as phenomena being truly existent. And initially on the path of accumulation and joining and training, one is doing this by means of a generic image and meditating with that means of a generic image. Remember, here, calm abiding will already have been accomplished. So those grosser levels of afflictions we mentioned previously have already become non-manifest. And probably at the level of the second of those 5 paths, the path of training, they cannot be born again. So those 5 we mentioned cannot return. Whereas, so that's direct. And then when it becomes direct, through that generic image, having relied on an inferential understanding of the lack of intrinsic nature of things, then at the direct moment of insight into reality, there again are different levels to go through. The first level is that one is abandoning the intellectual or gross level of grasping at true existence. And then, having done that, going through the innate or subtle levels of it. So what's that first level of grosser levels of abandonment, of clinging to true existence self? These are intellectually acquired ideas of a self that the Hindus and Christians may have. In the first instance, the notion of a monolithic type of self, or grasping at a type of self that depends or that is non-dependent on the five aggregates and exists disparate, separate from them. Secondly, the Christian notion of a soul would be another example of tenets or intellectually acquired grasping at self. So now here, the point to remember is you are still, if you cling to such a notion of a self, even though you might have cultivated calm abiding, you are still within the constraints of the transmundane world. And we ourselves have accomplished calm abiding countless times since beginningless time and have got to that level. But because we have not yet abandoned, in the context of grasping at true existence, the root and the seeds, we remain in cyclic existence. No.
통람 바제멜람딜라 팅메라이나 시수케지마 주룩세저로 통람케지마 주룩 틱젠라이나 반지 제자르 냠샤 지강 이 바제멜란 지기 상마 대직라 대방배 남들란데 대직라 yap터비온 거라.
Right. So in the context of the great vehicle, if we look at the path of seeing, the 16 moments that we traverse in terms of firstly cultivating the potency of objects of abandonment in terms of an uninterrupted path, and then that's the direct cause of a liberated path of release. That happens in one sitting.
틱젠라 냠샤 튠지 틱메라이나 게지마 주룩.
All right. So in the great vehicle, that would be one sitting. In the, let's say, root vehicles, they call it 16 moments.
그래서 네 배 딘지 군다게 네 딜랑원이 지니 냠부 지니 배 매부 소니 딜라 파제멜람체 딜라르미 제베 최진 전에 방버 터바당 아니 남들람 뒤중어서 덴바시나게 꼭 댄스야데 어디네 터고요다 디 람디 돈이 무슨 도에 람디 람덴체 덴바시나게 람덴세체 아니 꼭 댄스야데 남들람 터바당 디니 녀모 군다 딘지 군다 사면 라르미 제베 최진 제 방버 터 예델라 남들람체 방버딜라 꼭 댄체 디본제 람델라 아니 통람 파제멜람스 어다 도스 냠샤게 안에 방 냠버딘제 방당 림바드레스로.
Remembering here, the first level of objects of abandonment are these intellectually acquired gross afflictions in terms of firstly applying a countermeasure to that in terms of the uninterrupted path. Yeah, the uninterrupted path that one is applying. And here, in terms of the Four Noble Truths, this will be the fourth or true path. And then when the subsequent liberated path results, vis-a-vis the clinging intellectually to true existence and its seeds have been abandoned, then it becomes a true cessation, that third truth. Yes.
다드네 곰람딜라 티쟁 곰람딜라 반자 헨제사 헨제라 데 딘질 헨제라 워 딘질 헨제다 디사베 페나 딘질 헨제라 데 마란조 다 줍다 슈마슈 요 말해와 마란조 미 탐제 튠루 탐제 로 튠루도 들레이나 아 스데 마랑원에 두바지메 짐발 헨제디 제게요 마란조 미 줍다다 낭바이나레 힌두이나레 카지이나레 다 낭바 멤버이나레 chöke malembe jinyene danzi lenjede tanganga shushuke tenjesidu kola 직배 돌아오시다 계절을 소고 말에 상말로래 현재기 계기여러 봐제단 현재에 있어야 돼. 제단디 현재디 아니 하장게다 베트 유릉 보시는 거라서 베 디데이 인자 하장 빵가고 인자 안 될래야 타라숨 스 중원딩 첨보스 레레라야 숨숨제 구체 아니 라과 첨보들 타라니치 다데야 반자 구체당 타라 체당 저절에 테스트멘다 데데 요리 된 건조다 다단지 제정이 단다 디나는 마치 사람 시샤 체위나 사람 시샤 체위나 반자 진딩 초숨체 타라 숨숨 구체하러 다 첨배 첨보제로 와체 첨배 첨보들 타라 니 체위나 아니 주차송 반자 주데는 사주기 반자 모게를 자 네사레를 파제멜라 남들랑 도스 샤로다 한다 도스체는 사주 도단을 바데 반자 도단 기테 단데 파제멜라 남들랑 도단데 찍버려다.
Awesome. Now, when we get to the path of meditation, having dealt with the first level of afflictions, which are intellectual, we start to remove the innate ones, which all beings have kind of on a more instinctual level, all humans, animals, regardless even of whether one is Hindu, whatever religious persuasion, Buddhist or not, spiritually inclined or not, those innate grasping at true existences exist within all of us. And we have had such innate clinging to true existence since time without beginning. So therefore, because of the thickness of that, it is more difficult to abandon them, those latencies, those clingings. And there are set forth different ways of doing that. But in short, we can look at it in terms of in terms of the grounds and paths or Jetsun Chugi Gyaltsen's texts. The sequential abandonment, starting from the great of the great to the small of the small, when you go through that. Good. Yeah, okay, sorry. So just that, if you can imagine from the bottom up, the great of the great, the great of the middle, the great of the small, and then going up to middling and small. So each of those great, middling, and small has 3 divisions within it. And as you go through those from the first bumi to the 10th, you are sequentially going through those levels of abandoning, those innate concepts of grasping at true existence. So each one of those is going to have an uninterrupted path and a path of release related to it. So in terms of abandoning these innate obstructions, you're going to start with the gross and then go to the middle and the more subtle until right towards the end on the 10th bhumi, the very, very subtle, the last level is the very subtle level of obscurations. Yes. Yes, and then when that last level of innate seeds, which remain stains of clinging to true existence, are removed, then you arise as awakened. And that really is the essential meaning of the 8th chapter of the Ornament of Clear Realization. So having done that, perhaps we could read the text. Kisla chasan logi chap kapshiba logi. Okay. So please, we can read the whole text. It would be nice. Can I have one text? Sorry.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, it is cool.
Which one? No, no, no. I have Tibet. You have English? Do you? Yeah. Yeah. Start now.
Treatise of the quintessential instructions of the Buddha.
Jawage de Abhidhamma Samagana Bhayavana Mela Jawage de Abhisamaya Langara Namata Jaga. Pyoga de Jara Javari Jama Mela de Juma the way in Java Sanjay and Judamana Jala Jala Lord Sanjay the Matuanja
Path
Sanjay
causes the benefit of migrating
Indians and
beings to achieve the ends of the world and through the perfection.
Sanjay dan Judamana Jala Chaja Nindu Shiva Sona Kushi Nishi de Kayan Dola Kamashana
As the hosts of hearers and
Kanda
bodhisattvas are
Yanda de
paying
Mesuna
homage,
Namakuna
the path of the exalted knower of all.
Namba Tanji Shinje Yo Mayi de Chuje Dani to Den Temba Lasha, no Dan de Losa.
Sutras of the
Ladin
monks
and
who
Logo
pertain
Chawa the
Dharma
Mego,
practices,
Shira Parach,
realizing
Mogo
easily
Jini
is the
Yanda,
purpose of
Nangu Jini
composing.
Namji.
The perfection
In
of
Adam
wisdom is
Jeshawani,
carefully
Nangu
explained
Munzo
by
to
8
one,
categories.
Timoshi Dantaji, Fiji,
Of all
Jini,
aspects,
Chuju
knower of
Pudan Tenanji. Sanje Bana Danga
clear
Danga
complete
Jen,
realization of all
Tuba in
aspects.
Danger, Chuji, India, Mimba Danaji. Ajaju Jova,
Truth body,
Tivet
these are the
Language,
8.
Momo,
Generated
Lasa,
mind,
Roma, Sri
instructions,
Lanka,
4
Yen,
types of
Shiva,
bonds, definite.
Jawa,
The nature of
Tamela,
Dharma
Jawa,
Dhatu
Mama,
that serves the
Tuba,
support of the
Tuda,
achievements,
Kuda, Ngapa,
objects of
Tanga,
observation,
Ila Chewa, Rameta, Tuba, Shinde. Rudan Shinde, Tawa
illumination,
Shi,
definite.
Chawa, Dine, Kumela, Chenju, Semba, the Lamine, Yin, Tama, Yimberi, one, Tabi, Midun,
Path of seeing the great benefit, excellent qualities of this and other lives, function, belief, praise, veneration, and laudation, dedication, rejoicing, unsurpassable attentions, achieving the so-called very pure, the path of meditation, a knower of paths, the school of bodhisattvas is explained like that. Through knowing, not abiding in cyclic existence, through compassion, not abiding in solitary peace, through lack of method,
Chige ngoza jewa dinje jine namba je wo ni lo zo je dan dinje shine je wa da chu gu ze wa dan je we namba shine da je sin je pa dan shin de chi da
aspects
zo we
along
je
with
je de je dan de
applications,
ne de je
excellent
de dan je
qualities and
de
faults
ya
along
su
with
ze do me de
characteristics,
dan je ju ne
partial
je de me
concordance
shi
with
ne
the liberation,
je ne we ni me lo je bo za dan namba je shomba ko me shi dan ne dan yu chu de
equality of
namba ni shi
cyclic
dan je bu
existence
du
and
dan de ba
peace,
dan ne sa je
unsurpassable
de
pure land,
Ma shi
along
yo
with
ze
its
me ha
skillful
na lam ne
means,
ze de ba da chang ga dan ne wo je
realization
dan
of
yin
all
de de do
aspects.
me lo ko
Signs of that increases with respect to the individual paths of seeing and meditation. 4 types of antidotes, types of conceptions, uninterrupted meditative stabilization, as well as
Namdo Jevo, Namdo Jevo, Dena, Chunda, Dena, Chambona, Yinde, Suru, Dada, Chevada,
the 4
Chevada,
types.
Lejava, Migua, Midala, Tibet, Jenny,
Likewise,
Namangajala,
other
Chevasuja,
emanation,
Tabeju.
truth body, along with the
Suso, the
activities, are
Gune,
perfectly
Da,
described
Neda,
as
Da,
being
Da,
4
Jedeme,
types.
Suso,
The
Mine,
generated
Da,
mind is
Yeti,
desire
Ngul,
for
Sheme,
perfect and
Da,
pleasing
Chigre,
husband, fathers, welfare,
Timi, Da, So.
that and that are just as in
Tena,
the
De,
sutra,
Ngo, Da,
expressed
De, Da,
briefly and
Chigre,
extensively. Clothing,
Chena,
earth,
Mede,
gold,
Kain,
moon,
Da,
fire,
Tema,
treasure, jewel mine,
Shirab
ocean.
Jene, Tamje, Mizu, Me, Waje, Suso,
King,
Mo,
treasury,
Me,
highway,
Da,
Mount,
Time, Baye,
geyser,
Mo,
pleasant
Da,
sound,
Chime,
river,
Da, Tata, Da, Chama, Tie, Tama, Memo.
achievings of the truth,
Me, Mi, Du, Xie, Me,
Buddha
Wa,
and
Ni,
so
Din,
forth,
De, Ti,
no
Chama, Dong,
adherence,
Duen, Ba, Dan, To,
tirelessness,
Lomba, Se.
separate, holding the path.
Sumbo, Pinje,
The
Ngo,
five
Chik, Tin, De,
eyes, the
Namba, Me,
6th,
Da, Da, Nge, Je, Cha, Da, Chung, Da, De, Da,
and the
Chembo,
path of seeing,
Shidan, De, Nyambo, Da, Suno, Sungwa, Do, Pa, Namba, Ni, Mon, Da, Pong, So, Shi, Da, Je,
Dalim
Jine,
Sha
So, So, Namba.
faculty,
Sedan, Da, We, Den, Je, Nye, Zimba, Namba, Nye, De,
class
Je,
to
Da, Wan, Da,
class,
So,
and one
Ngo, Da, Pong,
obstacle,
So, Den, Le, De,
intermediate
Je, Ne,
state,
Sime,
and
Kong, Pa,
upon
Ni, La.
rebirth.
Ngo, Nye, Me, So, De, Je, De, Me, De, Cho, Be, Namba, Kun, De, Zum,
3
So, Kwa,
levels,
Je, Chu, Do, Da,
progressing
Nyumbo, Da,
to
Ne,
the
Bo.
peak of existence,
Shida, Yon, De, Do, Wa, Da,
destroying
Shida, Nyin,
attachment
De,
of
Je,
the
Wa,
form
Da,
realm,
Roma, Tima, Yin, Da,
pacifying in
Shin, Je,
that
De, Je,
present
Wa,
life,
Da, She, Kwa, Wa,
actualizing
Mo,
with the
Da, Tu,
body
Be, Di,
and the rhinoceros are
Shuje
the
yin la yin
20,
me je rin
by
da da
way
rin
of
ma
the
yin
object
ten
of
be su je je da
observation.
je tie ye wa yin se je mi gua chu na dan je Yeah, Galazawa, Jidian by Yatava, Kanda Jidian de
relying on possessing
Saja
core
Saba Mejeda,
conceptions,
Kanda
the
Dija
small,
de
middling,
Maje,
and
Loma
great are
Timun
superior
Najeda, Kanda
to
Dube
that of the
Simon,
hearers,
Simje,
along with the
Simje
rhinoceros
Kunjo
that.
Nidena, Ponado Nasamaye, Shimbo Suje Rajoni, Chedeja Vedi, Titazo Jena, Number Funde.
The aspect is the
Number de
stopping.
Devaye, Kwaja to Wakayamba, to Zen to Vichi, Sunday Sumi Jena, so Ledan Chansa. Ledan Chala Sobata, Migwa Medan de Bada, Koso Nabata, Chedi Chata, Moshe to Nangui Jimbe Sujeni.
Those forms and so forth
Jubedo,
which do not abide,
Dijela,
the
Devayi
entity lacking
Mashambajan,
nature.
Chedan Jena Soba.
They are the nature of one
Chinela don
another. They
Jabada,
do not
Sunday
abide as
Vivelandan,
impermanent and so
Talagava
forth.
Payin,
As empty and
Jedan
relative
Sunada,
entities.
Landa
They are the
Kana
nature of one
Sajata,
another.
Jimbo Senedua,
Whatever
Bayi
phenomena is not
Bashimbaji, no
apprehended,
Joa, Nande,
because these are not seen as
Sani
signs,
Dambo Dojo
or
de Sanda de
investigated with wisdom.
Bengunyi, Simjenam Sinji, Tonda Shinye Dembada, Jemi Wasawada, Tadi, Jesunya. Sanje gu
Those
de
lack
gawa da
production and
chuden
lack
bana
definite
jeba ye
emergence.
sone juwa yin ba
Purity,
she
those
da
are
ran chi me me
signless,
da yun ze
due to
ju wa
not
she wa
being
cha
based upon mere
suden je we
signs.
se wa se ra de ga wa jin ze da ku de la ma na
Meditative
yin ye je
stabilization,
la
the very
ye wa jin
activity
la
of
so la
that,
ze tu we mi
prediction
ngo
in
yin da
his
ni san ze
extinguished
me me
claim,
chi je da
the
san je shin
three
de jo wa
mutually
da ko
insane
wa yun ze me
entity,
je da lo
not
da chi me
conceiving meditators.
lo me da yin de je na ne de jo jo
The
je
small,
wa chang
middling,
ba
and
yan
great.
da dom je la va yu se
The
me da na
conceptions
de
are
va na
clear.
la me va na ni nge de la do me
By
de va
way
shi
of
ba ye da
particulars
va
of
me te da ji
confusion,
la do va da de ju ve na da ta de shin la ji mi ge le je la je na le
substantially
ve ge na
imputed,
je je lo mi da ne
apprehended
nyu mo da
souls are
ju bo de
asserted to
ne
be
na
of
va
two
le sang la
types,
pa ne yan de
due
se
to the
shin da si
entity
de
of
se
independent
san de
self
shi
and
ra
so
ran da
forth,
me lo ma
and
da ne se
support the
re da ka
aggregates
da
and
de
so
ve se
forth.
ne
They are similar,
na na mi je lo
undual
va ko
minds
da
and
ya
so
mi ge
forth,
me va da
teach the
ku
lack
ya
of
lo va mi
entity.
je sa ne ru bo yan da de da da se je zi ma ne so da ka sa che wa da se ma je da pong bo da tham da ke je da da
Realization
Kamsong Bola
antidotes
Neche Dan
abandoning
Sine
fully
Kunde
contact
Shimwa
those,
Kunjo Zina
wisdom
Shine
along
La
with
De Da Wa
compassion,
Nyam Shi Tongpa Nyi
uncommonness
La
with
Zemba
those,
Da De
the
Da Ge
sequence of awful
Nishu
and exalted
Hala Na
wisdom engaged in
Je
meditation,
Ba
though their
Di
support
Sani
is
Dumbato
lineage. Because of
Nanda
being
Gozon
invisible in
Shewa Da Kunzo
Dhammadhatu,
Nanda Da
the
Wa Ye
lineages are
Nije
not
Da Ne Lo
suitable
Me
to be
Da
different.
Chunya Mi Da
By way
Tome
of the particulars of
Mije Wa Da
qualities
Se Je
supported,
Da Chuna
the
Namba
divisions
Je
of
Da
that are
Je
fully
Tokwa
described.
Gunde Chokwa Da
The objects of
Je Da Da
observation are
Nyuma
all
Bo Shine
phenomena,
Ngi Wa Se Ne
moreover,
Da
they are
Kala La
virtue
Ne Kya
and
Wa
so
Da
forth,
Simde Wa Da Nyebe
mundane
Je Tongpa
realizations.
Nyebe Je
Those are
Sakwe Sami Ande
supramundane,
Shije De Ne
contaminated
Je
and
Je Kunde Da
uncontaminated
Nyuma
phenomena,
Je Tongpa Da
those that are
Dunpe Nyi De
compounded and
Ye Je
uncompounded,
Simje Kunye
qualities
Shimba Je
common
Namba
with the
Shiva Se
doers,
Wa Da
and those uncommon qualities of the
Sanga Da
subduers.
Jo Wa
The
Da Yin
three
Se Da Je
are
Da Je Je
supremacy of all
Hongpo
sentient
She
beings,
Da Je
the
Je
abandonment and realization.
Shijo Je Ma Da We Je Se Je Se Wa Lemba Na Le Ne Namba Di Je Me La Da Ne Da Ye Wa La La
Because
Ka
those
Wa Ke Je
individually
Da Ko Wa
include the
Shu Wa
six
Da We
types,
Da Me De Ju
generosity
Be
and
Shi
so
Je
forth,
Da Shi Da
that
Ju Da
which
Shi
is
Da Da
achieving
Ko Da Da
is explained
Jijo
exactly by
Jijo
the way
Jina
of the six sets of
Ja
six. The
Yune
concentrations and
Pendo
formless
So Sago
absorptions,
Dane
generosity
Shi
and
Ni
so
Kangi
forth,
Sanje Sane Ma Ti
cards,
Ni
love,
Ju
and
Se
so forth.
Jiwa Yimba Jiwa Je Tona Gombe Landa Ni Sunda Zibe Nando Di Jiwa Shiwa Chewe Shi Nyambo Namba Ji Ji Je Chede Cheda Ni
The achieving
Sinje
are
Sinje Dula
engaged in the
Beme
manner
Da
of
Tala
man.
Deva Hisho Da Tebe Sinye Nge Hanje Namba
Mercy,
Sanje
the
Nge Je
six,
Da Rangi
generosity, and
Ji
so forth,
Namba Je
calm
Je Da Ji
abiding
Di
together
Nge
with
Jun Duwa
special
Yimba Ji
insight.
Shere Pare Chi Me Minga Di Jung Umba Tuwe Ji Ji Sho Le Namba Da Je Jimba Nyi Kode Tambo
Attentions and
Hanaruwa
paradigms
Jebeji, Viji
and
Mungo
antidotes,
Bazeba, Yunge
sequence and
Badancho, Yunge
achievements of
Badan Chawada,
accumulation.
the Shedane
By
Dile,
means of the
Namji
ten
Jina.
types of complete
Hawed and
trains, the first
Bashidade,
ground will
Namba
be
Mime
attained,
Koneni,
the
Jindu
attitude, the
Lani
very thing
Vijini,
that
Pawani de
benefits,
Lana,
equality
Sula
of
Soba
mind to all
Tombani,
sentient
Tombani
beings,
Nayime,
giving,
Kawade
relying
Dana.
on the spiritual path,
Temo Jawada
seeking the object
de la
consolation of
Taso,
the excellent Dharma,
Java Kawas,
a constant mind of
Sajadala
definite
Name,
emergence,
Jawadi.
designed delighting the body of
Chuja
the Buddha.
Jiji Shina Sanjeji, Chene Chuna Majeje, Jodani Dobeji,
Though
Shijide
these, as the complete
Migunda,
trains, by
Suratabe
way of not
Shini,
observing
Sawani
the
de
nature,
Mumbaje,
ethics
Kanda
repaying that done,
Jida
patient,
Jida
spirit
Jida
joyful,
Jida
great
Jawani,
compassion, mercy,
Tamekanda,
honor,
Sujo
listening
Dawa
respectfully
Pajeta,
to the
Tsunami
Guru,
Wajinani, Sinji Suratabe. Yanda Deva
not
Jimbaje,
settling for
Tabe Sinji
pioneering,
Mingane,
giving
Tebe
Dharma
Nanda
without reward,
Debeje, Temo Jua
thoroughly
Solaje,
purifying the
Tiba
Buddha
Mila
land,
Sawaje,
not being
Nandoji
saddened by
la
cyclic
sawaye,
existence,
suza mije
shame and
sawaje, sujo
embarrassment,
de jawaje, namba jinje jiyoje, dena dena sawa da shive kije namba.
not forsaking the training, content for desire, nirvana, giving away all possessions. Places where there is described praising oneself, belittling others, due to conceit, being puffed up, erroneous, faulty intelligence, putting up with afflictions, having complete abandoned these. Generosity, ethics, patience, joy, effort, concentration, and wisdom. Abandoning the mind by ignorance, undismayed, not doubtful, without dislike, never giving away all possessions, not abandoning innocence, even though poor, by the sixth ground is perfectly attained, apprehending a self, strong adherence to a view regarding ethics, dispute about emptiness, and contradictory with that, the 720 faults of the seventh crown is attained, knowing the three doors of liberation, complete purity of the three spheres, phenomena just as equal, knowing as one mode, not produce patience in knowing, showing phenomena as a single aspect, totally destroying conceptions, abandoning discrimination, views and afflictions, indifferent, intent with calm abiding, special insight, skill, turned to mind, background of attachment, wasting away, travel to other lands simultaneously, always demonstrating one's own entity. These are the 20. Knowing the minds of all sentient beings, merciful with clairvoyance, establishing an excellent Buddha land, relying on a Buddha in order to fully investigate. Abiding like an illusion and taking existence in accordance with mentality. These kinds of actions are explained as the eight. Their infinite prayers, unwilling riches, gods, and so forth, confidence like a river, supreme entry into a room, path, clans, family, retinues, birth, creation, Bodhi trees, and fulfilling excellent qualities. Having passed through the 9 grounds, the excellent wisdom for each one abides on the Buddha ground, known as the 10 Bodhisattva ground. Regarding the paths of seeing for the realization, thoroughly pacifying the there are said to be 8 types of antidotes, objects of intent and quality, the welfare of sentient beings without effort, definite emergence and passing beyond extremes, definite emergence with characteristics of attainment. Chapter 2, the Knower of Paths. In order to make the goal suitable, eclipsing with light, definite object pervaded, nature and its action, regarding the mode of a knowable path, by means of not obscuring states of the Four Noble Truths, here is path of between. With regard to the path, the Varya here is, since forms and so forth are empty, emptiness is indivisible, therefore he, due to those not being observed, is asserted that it becomes the peak, by stopping the abiding on those, by way of permanent and so forth, the forbearance beginning from the 10 grounds, that extensively indicated as not abiding, become the supreme mundane quality. These are explained. Why? Because the Buddhas, by means of exalted knower, do not see phenomena. Self arisen because he realizes by oneself. Also, he does not need to be taught by others. The exalted wisdom of the rhinoceros-like is clearly described as being more profound. Whenever, whatever means, however, to one desiring to hear, the meanings appear in that way, even without sound. The conceptions of apprehension by support, the path of a rhinoceros-like is to be known as perfectly encapsulated. The aspect that shows as non-contradicting with the Dhamma, putrid is transformed into heat, transformed into peak is differentiated for so forth, because of not apprehending forms and so forth, forbearance and so forth, lacking production and so forth is the supreme mundane quality. instances of the forbearances explained along with the benefits, because in thusness and Buddha's mutual support, as accepting categorization, the great as well as the that cognizant does not exist, immeasurable without extremes, unabiding only differently apprehensive, in the state of a Buddha, not adopted but discarded and so forth, love and so forth, emptiness, attaining Buddhahood. Being guarded by the Buddhas and so forth, not killing and so forth, the manner of an exalted knower of all aspects, thereby setting sentient beings, generosity and so forth, dedicating to complete enlightenment. These are the instants of the knower of paths, bound through pacification, bound to all, victory over the afflictions, not pity yet ever ongoing, enlightenment, unjust worship of the support. Belief is to be known as beings of three types: one's welfare, one's and others' welfare, and others' welfare. Further, they are asserted to be individually three types: small, middling, and great. Moreover, there are three types by way of divisions: the small, and so forth. In this way, asserted to be of 27 types. On the occasions of belief and the perfection of wisdom, by means of the three sets of nine, they are asserted to be praised, visualized, and lauded. The action of that special dedication is superior, but bearing the aspect of not observing the characteristic of not being erroneous, devoid, bearing the object of utilization, recollects the nature of the Buddha's accumulation of merit, together opinions, silence, rejoicing by the Buddhas, not included in these three realms, of the small, middling, and great, and actually being the source of great merit, by way of method and not observing, rejoicing in the roots of virtue, is described here as the Supreme Itself, not strongly composing with respect to all, bestowing not observed good qualities, degrading in itself. Devotion to the Buddhas, generosity, and so forth, as many skilled means, are the cause of belief in this. The causes of being bereft of qualities are being oppressed by Maras, not believing in the profound Dharma. Seized by negative companions, the results of pure forms and so forth are just pure. Because of what? Since those two are not different and they are not delineated, they are described as purity. Because of the effect of the knowledge and having diminished those are three parts, the purities of the ladies, the rhinoceros, and the victor's children, the Buddha's exception in all ways. On the nine levels, the antidotes and the stains, the great of the great and so forth, the paths that are small and small, so forth. These are path and accompanings. Knowledge of clear realization, knowledge basis, not abiding in the extremes on this side and that side, as it were. That by means of observing silence, whether the correct means is distant, that with skill and means is explained as correctly near, the emptiness of the aggregate swarms and so forth, phenomena belonging to the three tones, the harmonies with enlightenment, generosity, and so forth, the discrimination of practice regarding the ends of disconcord of class, that which without apprehension of I, just one, and so forth, connects others to that, ceases the extreme of grasping, and the subtle grasping up to the victors and so forth, because the path of phenomena is devoid of nature, it is profound itself. Since seeing and so forth is blocked, that is explained to be difficult to realize, because it does not know forms and so forth. The application of stock forms and so forth, the practice with respect to their impermanence and so forth, and the incomplete and the thoroughly complete, and not grasping to that, and changing the non-existence of the great. The applications of the three types of difficult activities, due to attaining results. And so forth, to make certain instincts for being accessed and oriented to the Dharma knowledge and subsequent knowledge is the path that sees the mode of the knower of all. Not produced, not ceased, and so forth, like space, abandoned grasping, freedom from being fully held, inexpressible by entityness. Because of that, the meaning of this is not imparted to others by expression, acting without observing, not being related to signs, not producing the knower with respect to the two things and names. These are the instants of knower of all. Thus these, also these. These are three types, incomplete. The third chapter of the treatise of quintessential instructions and perfection of wisdom, Ornament for clear realization. Chapter 4, the application and complete aspects. Ranging from the aspect of non-existence through to the aspect of removability. Those explained as 4 with respect to each truth, as 15 with respect to the past, with respect to the causes and paths, suffering and cessations, respectively. Those are 8, 7, 5, and 16 is declared. Those ranging from the close placements of mindfulness through to the final aspects of the Buddha are divided into 3 types of exalted knower of all, in accordance with true paths. Therefore, for learners, bodhisattvas, Buddhas, respectively, 37, 34, 39 are asserted. Those who have acted exceptionally towards other Buddhas, planted roots of virtue in regard to them. Spiritual guides are vessels for listening to these. Because of having served the Buddha's question and the conduct of generosity, ethics, and so forth, are asserted to be excellent beings, not abiding in forms and so forth. In occasion to that, because of being difficult to realize over a long time with great hardship. Prediction, irreversibility, definitely emergent, being without hindrances, close to enlightenment quickly, others' welfare, because of no increase and no decrease. Dharma, and so forth, not seeing inconceivable forms and so forth, not conceptualizing forms and so forth. Along with the 14 types of excellent qualities, overcoming the might of the Maras and so forth, the faults of being understood as differently as 6, along with 4 sets of 10. That which characterizes is made known to be a characteristic. Moreover, those are 3 types. The knowledge distinguishing the functional, that which is the emptiness is also an objective characterization. The horizon of a Tathagata, the world without disintegration, the nature, the mental activities of sentient beings, withdrawn and directed outwards, the aspect of inexhaustible, together with attachment and so forth, that has become great, immeasurable, consciousness are without indication, consciousness are not to it, relatical, fluctuating, and so forth. Knowing also those that are other than him, as the aspect of thusness, that known as the subduer teaches the realization of thusness to others. The knowledge characteristics in the context of knowing intended for long soundlessness, production, cessation, and so forth. The reality is understood, not composed, not conceptualized, classified without characteristics. These are asserted to be the knowledge characteristics in the context of respecting, taking aside, using, nothing to him, no agent, that which is an exalted knower, engaged in all. Teaching is not seeing, the world is an aspect of endings, describing, making direct, teaching the inconceivable and the classification, stopping the world in discrimination. These are explained as the characteristics and the mode of an exalted knower in all aspects, through the distinctions of inconceivable and so forth, by way of the 16 instants, the position inconceivable, unequal, perfectly transcending comprehension and enumeration, incorporating all areas that which is known by the wise, known quickly, not decreasing but increasing, accomplishing perfectly, accomplishing, observing all, support, all complete, upholding in the taste, and knowing which are the 16 distinctions, the paths of the paths of distinction because they are superior to others, benefit, happiness, protection, are refuge for human beings. Affliction, signs, marks, devoid of a discordant class, and antidotes, difficult, definite, objects of intent, not observed, stopping at ease, known or observing, discordance without aspiration, progressing without production. Thusness, not observed, the natures that are the 16 entities, because they are characterized by objects of characterization, are suited to be the fourth type of characteristic. No signs, skilled and perfectly accomplished, great generosity and so forth. This realization of all aspects is suited to be in accordance with liberation. A mindfulness, a perfect attitude, joyous effort in the objects of utilization, non-conceptualizing so the five types. Complete enlightenment is asserted to be easy to realize by the sharp. Here, the objects of observation and different levels of sentient beings is praised. The types, equal mind, due to oneself turning away from negativities.
chani shingpe da jana chari danyo sari da sheni haja mire da chuni bima dana chanye bada sawa da mada rene jawa da sunye jana jawa da noda kada nyumba da chinje jada shendo da chode da wasa da chinye bada
Abiding from beginning from the
beme da ba
branches of
jawa
different.
da minzuri na jawa da noda rene jawa da chani jida jawa da nyumba na basuna de dewa
By way of
dewa lewa jawa da ye jawa da uje da uda buma da na na to da jana mi zeda mi jari je mewa da yini towa chewa da te yue sanje peche sangpo che gangi zine jawa na dola
having
jawa
turned
na
away
bache
from
nani
forms and
jiwe
so
bache
forth,
tuwe tuwe
extinguishing
kime
doubt
de
and the
chen kawa
non-freedoms,
zine de leni jume chewa de
abiding in
dona
the
shiwe
virtue and placing it in others,
jena jela kawa de
generosity
kune
and so
nyumba jawa
forth, being
ye
in the
namba
support
chama
of
tawa
others
da sanje
without
nane
acquiring
jawa
even
de tena
conceiving
pare
of being
jendo
able to
da sanje
perform,
langai
loving body
Oma
and so
jida nise
forth,
de
not
dala
being
me wa me
accompanied
wa
by the
da
five
luje
types
nane
of
jawa na
obscuration,
shijibe sibe na ne
having
goma chiba
destroyed
da
all
wa da shinjo
dullnesses,
to da sanje shi
sin introspection,
Nama da
being
da
closed
kije
and so
da
forth,
sanje de je suma de sanje de do je de da shinjo ye la na ne
not
ne
having
shime
a
se na
crooked
ne
mind,
na shinjo lo ne
training,
pa wa da
adopting,
je me we se ne ne nama jida je de ma je wa da ta de yo se me she de
seeking
nge de
more
la
for the
ko
welfare
de
of
chu ju
sentient
ko yo de
beings.
la je nama
Others
ni she
cannot
de
lead
je
one
she
to
ra pare
those
je
who
me nga
teach,
de ma ji
realizing the Maras as
Tinye
Maras,
de jo wa
activities
da
that
tira
please the
de pa
Buddhas,
je pita
by way
de
of
nama
these
je
20
de she ne
signs,
nama je yu ne nama
irreversible,
su ma
complete
je cho wa
enlightenment,
che da ni
of
de
those
chu ko
abiding
tule de
on
wa de
heat,
je de
peace,
she ne nama
forbearance, and
je
so forth, stable mind.
nga bo na ne de je na an je we ju wa ne nga da je bo na da ni nga da je bo na ni ne ku ne nyu mo cho wa da rang ge ten ne tan je da me ba an je chen na
Always
je
chaste, pure
ku nye mo nye
livelihood,
la wa da
individually
lu la
ceasing
mo da po
violence,
wa da ne
involvement,
ku ne nyu
subsequent
mo da na
involvement
ba
with the
je na ma
aggregates,
je
and
da
so
so da
forth.
so wa na da ne
Those that
so da na
obstruct the accumulation
Yang
of the
ada
battle
da
of the
na
powers,
je
and
to
so
ba da
forth.
ne ye ku ji
Miserliness,
na
and
ku
so
ji ni
forth,
ku
not
ji ni ku
observing the
ji na
Dharma,
si ji na
a
ti
mere
je da
atom.
ya da ku ji nyu wa da so da na ja shi ni da ong wa da ne shi ni da ya na ju ge de na ni ke da ni na
Such
ni ge
16
da ku ji
instants
ni
are
ye
the
ba ba
signs of
da so wa da ne
irreversibility of an
do se ma
intelligent
ma
one
ye da
abiding
de
in the
ma ong de
path
sa
of
ma ye de
seeing
wa sa ma
with
sa wa
respect
ne
to the
si ne de
path
ye
of
de wa ye shi
meditation.
na de ye de wa ye si de sa ma ma ye yi ne
For
Hama
the
je ga da
extreme
wa je dong
subsequent
guan mi la
position
la
and
wa ne su
application,
yin su yin de wa
that
ye
which
su je su
repeatedly
de je wa da
contemplates,
sa da je wa
assesses,
de
and
wa je
definitely
su ne na me ju yin
investigates
de
that
ta ma
on
je
the
ne yin
branches
de
of
je ma
definite
da ba ne
discrimination,
na ma mi
path
wa
of
na je
seeing
je
and the
yi
path
na
of
so wa da
meditation
wa je
itself
ga
is
wa
the
je
path
da
of
wa je na
meditation.
ye
That because of
nam
being
ni yi dan so
infinite,
je da nam so shi ne
meddling
da
in the
da
great,
de ji
being
me ba
divided
do se
into the
ba do
small, the
pa ma
small,
wa
and
na
so
da ne
forth,
da ma do
is
sa do
suited
shi
to be
ba
of
na je
mind
wa ma do sa
by way of
yi
aspects.
dan so wa
The
na so je yi
teachings
ne
of the
wa je je
countless
wa
and so
ne su ne
forth
je wa
cannot
ne
bear up.
pa ma je lo
Ultimately,
je wa
the
ne je wa da
subdued
ma
suit
na
of
mi
those
yi
to
su
be
ne je wa mi je do
cause
ga
of
de na
mercy
ne su na do
conventionally, It is inappropriate for properties that are not expressible to diminish and increase what is diminished and what is attained by way of the path called meditation. Exactly, just as enlightenment at this point. Enlightenment is the characteristic of thusness. Also, that is asserted to be the characteristic of that. Enlightenment is not by a formal nor by a letter one, though the mode of analogy may well have the 8 aspects of the profound Dharmata. Profundities with respect to production, cessation, thusness, objective knowledge, knowledge activity, non-duality, and skill and means, non-conceptualizing cyclic existence and peace. Does not exist. Is that which has just been explained. Through establishing the world of sentient beings, and likewise characteristics not common, not grasping, not observing, signs, extinguishment of signs of that, the immeasurable, of attain to acts of skillful means, the fourth chapter on the complete clear realization of all aspects of perfection. Chapter 5, the peak application, viewing all phenomena as being like dreams, even in a dream, and so forth, the 12 types of signs of the application. The virtues of however many beings there are, angelic people, offerings to the Buddhas, and so forth, through analogies made in many ways. They are the nature of 16 increases, unsurpassable thorough completion, the qualities of the three exalted ones. Stability through analogies made of the four continents, 1,000, the million, and the billion world systems. The meditative stabilization is proclaimed by immense work. The conceptualization is about bringing engagement and turning away, beings visually known as the natures of mind, as the nature of not. Through the divisions of ordinary beings alone, with respect to sentient beings or substantial. The apprehenders, conceptualizations are asserted, those are individually natures of mind. If they are asserted to be apprehenders of any, the apprehended objects in reality, then those would be a characteristic of being empty of the entities that apprehended in that way. The emptiness, village, perfect accomplishment of the path, the unmistaken observer, object of a knower, the disordered classes and intellects, one's own realization making. Lacking in choosing a complete type of progressing through the conditions of others, the wrong object and intent, trifling various, those confused and abiding in comprehending these conceptualizations, the natures of mind, bearing the support of the class, to be turned away from the arising minds, appearance, and so forth, upholds and discards attention closely related, imputing things that are phenomena, grasping antidotes, impaired progress as desired. The first type of apprehending is to be understood, not definitely emerging as intended, definitely apprehending as a path and not being. Destroying the lineage, seeking, lacking cause, observing end. These are the other conceptualizations that apprehend. With respect to enlightenment, teaching others, thoroughly bestowing the causes of that, and the uninterrupted cause for attaining. The exalted wisdom of extinction and non-production of stains is described as enlightenment, because they lack extinction and production. What type of conceptualization is extinguished? What aspect of non-production is attained? Any statement that the teacher has extinguished the obscurations is with respect to the objects of knowledge. That correctly views the perfect, having seen the perfect liberation, that included within forbearance, that is the same wisdom, that which is as mutually included, in each of generosity and so forth, is the path of seeing in this, in duty having absorbed in meditative stabilization, loftily looking around, he realizes the full order and reverse order depending on having ascended or descended in two ways, the 9 absorptions that are known with the Consciousness included in the desire realm, having leaped over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, proceeding similarly through the absorption of cessation, the brief and extensive but not whole, by the aid of the Buddhas, the non-existent qualities of the three times. Conceptualization is apprehended. Not producing the mind, non-attention to less itself. Attention to lesser vehicle, non-attention to complete enlightenment. Meditating, not meditating, their opposites, and not according with the meaning. These conceptions have been known with respect to meditation. The objects of utilization imputed as a sentient being, imputed as phenomena, not empty. Grasping, nature, descent, acting on properties, the three vehicles, impure gifts, disturbed conduct. First type of acting conduct presently known as proclaimed. The object possesses the three types of obscurations to the three exalted knowledge of all that, according to the inequality, sufferings, and so forth. Confusion with respect to non-duality. These are asserted to be the last conceptualizations. Having exhausted these infectious diseases like cancer, relief after a long time, all the fulfillments of excellent qualities that accomplish the happiness of the greater beings, like rivers converging like gradation, supporting all ways of bodhisattva is adorned by supreme souls. Through analogies made of virtues of setting, the beings of the benevolent systems, and the excellent realizations of the by immense effort and uninterrupted meditative stabilization without an interruption to Buddhahood, the exalted knower of all aspects. The profoundest dispute continuously. Feasible objects of observation, their entityness definitely apprehended. Together with the means, the realization of the subduers, the errors as well as the path, the antidotes in the discordant class, characteristics in meditation, the wrong conceptions in the propounders. The fifth chapter, the clear realization of the peak of the treatise of Chapter 6, the serial application, those with generosity through wisdom and phenomena entityness lacking the thing, asserted to be the activities of the serial. The sixth chapter of the clear realization of the serial of the treatise of instructions of the perfection of wisdom. Chapter 7, instantaneous application, because all uncontaminated qualities are included with generosity and so forth. This realization of the subduer in a single instance to be understood. When the apparatus of water mirrors propelled by a beam in a single stride, likewise it knows in a single instant, at a time when the state of right qualities, the perfection of wisdom, the natural wholesome qualities is produced. The abiding phenomena is being like dreams. Chapter 8, the truth body. The nature of the body of subduer as attaining the uncontaminated qualities. All aspects, the characteristics of the nature of beings, the harmonies with enlightenment, the immeasurables, the nature of the non-serial absorptions, totalities, the sources that are the masteries, the eight types of truth. The clairvoyance is the individual correct knowledges, the four four purities in all ways, the 10 powers, the 10 strengths, the four fearlessnesses, the three types of absence of anything to guide against, the three types of closed placements of mindfulness, the nature that does not have forgetfulness, perfectly destroyed latencies, great compassion for beings, the 89 mixed qualities, the true love, those which are explained in the exalted noble aspects and so forth, the good true body, the heroes without afflictions, abandoning the afflictions of people who look, the victors without afflictions cuts the continuity of the afflictions of those towns and so forth. The Buddha's exalted knower wishes asserted to be spontaneous, grasping, to be unobstructed, to abide permanently. Through the thorough ripening of the causes, it appears as this beneficial activity for anyone, anywhere, at any time, just as even though the King of Gods might have sent down rain, an unsuitable seed does not grow due to lacking fortune. They do not experience the excellences, even though the Buddhas, because the activities in that way are extensive. Is also described as permanent. Through the two signs of purification is asserted to be the complete enjoyment body of Sajira because of the thorough enjoying the Mahayana. Hands and feet having signs of wheels, turtles' feet, digits and hands and feet joined with webs, hands along with feet are smooth and tender, 7 regions of the body elevated, long digits, broad heels and large upright body, knees not protruding, ears pointing, calves like the antelope's, long and beautiful eyes, golden hued skin, soft like, ears growing singly, eyes not upwards, face adorned with a treasure, hair, tortoise like the lion's, tops of the shoulders rounded, broadness between the shoulders. With respect to this, the appearance of even taste, such as the best of taste, body is symmetrical like a Nicoda tree, possessing increasing with time, the melodious voice of Brahma, cheeks like a lion, teeth, even teeth, well set, 40 complete in number, azure eyes, eyelashes, magnificent like a cow's, the 32 of the signs, accomplished due to having thoroughly completed the corresponding causes to accomplish the signs with respect to this, seeing gurus off and so forth, lying on gathering, had to be killed, perfectly adopting virtue, advancing from within, and so forth, accomplished them as they have been explained in the sutras. The Sajira male, set of copper colored, glossy and raised digits, rounded, well developed and tapered, canes not prominent and without knots, ankle bones do not protrude, legs equal, the gait of a lion, an elephant, swan or leader, proceeds in a clockwise manner, beautifully and upright, body that is elegant, cleansed, well proportioned, clean, soft and pure, signs are thoroughly complete, body that is well built, 2 eyes that are clear, youthful looking, very fair, limbs that are thoroughly distinct, sight that is obscured and clear, waist is round, moderately sized, without depressions, and belly is flat, navel is deep and curled clockwise. Tongue is supple, slender, and red. Voice is thunderous, supple and smooth. Canine teeth are round, sharp, white, and even, tapered. Nose is prominent and supremely clean. Eyes white. Forehead is well defined and broad. Head is well formed. Hair is black as bees, dense, smooth, untangled, not bristly, fragrance captivating the minds of beings, Shrivastas and asserted to be Buddha's excellent amplifications, the exalted body through which the various benefits to migrating beings are simultaneously enacted as long as cyclic existence exists, is the uninterrupted emanation of the Lord, the moon, Sabjira. As long as cyclic existence exists, the activities of this are asserted to be uninterrupted, the activities in which migrations have been pacified, sitting in the four means of the gathering disciples,
The realization of
thoroughly afflicted, completely pure, sentient beings, and the meaning of that is exactly the meaning of the six perfections. The path of the Buddhas, the emptiness of inherent existence, duality extinguished, terminology not observed, thoroughly ripening and embodied. The Bodhisattva's path, turning away from adherence, attaining enlightenment, purifying of the Buddha land, definite. The immeasurable welfare of the sentient beings, the excellent qualities of relying on Buddhas, and so forth. The branches of enlightenment. Abandoning the errors.
the mode of obstacles or places, the completely pure accumulation is not going and compounding.
Uncompounded is different. And setting in nirvana as exalted activities of the truth body are asserted to be of 27 types. The 8th chapter, quintessential instructions of the perfection of wisdom, ornament for clear realization, the indication of other summarized meanings, the characteristics, the application of those, that highly, the sequence of those, the final, the fruition. Another set of summarized meanings is the 6 types. Of objects, the cause, the nature of the 4 applications.
The truths of the quintessential instruction of the perfection of wisdom, or the clear realization of both by the perfected venerable enterprises.
Ôi, đó để sao đó.
Thus, we stop for this evening.
Page 31 for the short mandala. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more.
Shime Joanna, Bidin Uni, the Waji, Bidin Simba Juna, Dizzy Joanna, Shime Joanna, Namel Joanna, Shina, Jona Solana, Nabri Chudan, Jivaja, Dubana, Diva, Kanje Kuno, Medan, the bed, the tree, and the Lavin, Chavala, the woman, Joanna, Kulo Nani Judan, dinner to you, unit of water, you are the top of the Joanna. Gombe Banjani Gaye, Mani Jizu, Radu Joanna, there's a Lamrim prayer. To be done, Nami Lenny, Nare Nami Zawaj, to Balana Joanna, to Bassa Joanna, DJ Sama Joanna, Jason Joanna. Tele Mini Poetry, Tade, that game, Pajanga Chudan, Tanjabu. Kenyana Yanani, Gizan, Kiloni, Sudantani legend, Dead and Bashijo, Tamono Rename, Sodava, Nande, some day in the day, some may pub, Lamani, Sinjin.
I now release all the burdens by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness of the minds of all beings.